One of the most fascinating places in the solar system, and one of the most mysterious phenomena in modern day planetary science. There's a lot about Jupiter's moon Europa that we don't know. But when it comes to extraterrestrial life in the solar system, Europa is by far the main candidate according to a majority of scientists. The likelihood for life on this moon is boasted not by surface life, but by life beneath the surface in the moon's underground oceans. These underground oceans are below the thick icy sheet that covers the surface of Europa, and although the presence of a liquid ocean beneath the icy sheet isn't officially confirmed, the majority of planetary scientists believe that it's very likely. Recent discoveries by NASA indicate that this ice sheet could be being moved by the ocean currents underneath, influencing the speed at which the ice sheets rotate around the moon. We know that the ice sheet floating above the surface rotates around the moon at certain speed, but we just now started to think that maybe the ocean currents might be the main engine for the ice's movement. The icy surface of the moon makes the sunlight reflecting off the moon very bright, and this makes it one of the brighter celestial objects in our solar system. We can see huge cracks in the icy surface, which are incredibly aesthetic, if you ask me, almost a work of art. When you look at Europa, it's really a perfect cocktail. Jupiter's gravitational pull helps keep much of the solar system, including Earth, together. It's also harboring to a plethora of moons that have many unique characteristics. The most studied and paid attention to moon that orbits Jupiter is Europa. Jupiter keeps Europa hard at work as it's constantly pulling on the moon to keep it tidally locked into its orbit. This keeps the moon's core very active, which generates heat for the moon. This is why the possibility of a liquid ocean beneath its cold surface is even possible. It warms what would be very cold water into a reasonable temperature and provides energy for the ocean to possibly sustain life. This ocean could be teeming with life for all we know, and that's why many scientists want to make this a priority. Microbial life is much more likely than complex multicellular life due to the fact that the conditions in the liquid ocean that might or might not exist are most likely so harsh that only extremophiles can live in it. However, even if it's microbial life, this would be a huge step forward in science and officially answer the question, are we alone in the universe? There are projects in the near future set to probe beneath the icy shell of Europa and see if there are habitable conditions for alien life. As far as detecting life itself, that might not be so easy. So we've got a long way to go, but we're learning more and more about Europa on a yearly basis, and we've become closer to figuring things out about this moon of late. And before 2035, we very well might have an answer as to whether or not there's life in our solar system outside of Earth, but that's still a tall task. Another fascinating fact about Europa is that it's very close to the size of the Earth moon. It's actually about 90% of the size of the Earth's moon, but about 900% more interesting if you ask me. The great thing about the moon being of decent size is that the oceans beneath its icy sheet could be incredibly deep. Some scientists believe the ocean can be up to 120 miles deep, and you thought our ocean was deep. It's estimated that Europa has twice as much liquid water in its underground ocean than all of the oceans on Earth. Pretty mind blowing considering the fact that Europa is pretty much the same size as Earth's moon and therefore way smaller than the Earth. Now, as promising as all this sounds, there are many scientists who believe that life on Europa is still very unlikely. The fact that life, as far as we know, needs so many conditions to be just right in order to survive and especially evolve into complex multicellular organisms, first of all, you need some sort of geothermal activity on the ocean floor, such as active volcanoes, in order to supply energy to sustain life. And you have to hope that the bonding of elements from this energy formation creates a healthy type of ocean environment and not deadly compounds that create some of the methane oceans that we see on other moons in the solar system. There are all kinds of acidic compounds that can make up a lot of the subsurface ocean of Europa. This would make it extremely unlikely that even the most basic forms of life could live in these oceans. I think a telltale sign of the ocean composition will be how our future technology reacts with any sort of liquid seeping above the surface. If it's incredibly damaging to the technology, more so than normal salt water, that would be a bad sign. And even if the potential water just beneath the ice sheet is close to what we know in our oceans, it doesn't mean that the ocean doesn't have more acidic type of water as you go further down. But it very well might be healthy water all the way down to the core of the planet. We do know that in 2012 and 2014, scientists saw apparent plumes of water jetting up from the surface via the Hubble telescope. I know that if we do strike liquid water and something similar to salt water on Earth, the scientific community will go crazy, and the talks of potential alien life will ramp up significantly, and so are our efforts to further study the moon. So, assuming the subsurface oceans are void of any deadly compounds that would make it inhospitable for life, what kind of life can we realistically expect to find on Europa? Some scientists boast that there's an outside shot of squids or octopus or something of the sort, while the majority think it's more likely to find very basic life such as bacteria. But the question is, wouldn't single celled organisms always be more likely than complex life, considering how hard it is for complex life to develop? I mean, I feel as if we gauge what type of life we will most likely see on a planet when searching for alien life, we will always say that if we find life, it's more likely to be less complex life form. I mean, odds and statistics would obviously favor there being basic life as opposed to complex. But it doesn't change the fact that multicellular complex life forms could very well exist in Europa's oceans as well. And the exciting news in all of this is that we might not have to wait too incredibly long before we find out what type of water is beneath the icy shell of the moon. NASA is sending the Europa Clipper to the moon in October of next year. So, in a little over a year's time, we will be on our way to finding out much more about the composition of the planet's ocean. The Clipper will be reaching the moon in 2030 and conducting years of scientific study on the moon's oceans. So, in a little less than a decade's time, we should have a lot of answers. Now, if you ask me, things with space take way too long, but unfortunately, it just takes time to build such technology and perform these kind of missions. Now, I used to be curious about the possibilities for a manned mission to Europa, like why not send people there? But there are some massive hurdles to overcome here. First and foremost, the insane amount of radiation you would be exposed to on the moon would kill you in a very short amount of time, like as in a day or so, even with the protection of a spacesuit. So it's currently physically impossible for us to spend any significant time there. And as far as this kind of long distance space travel, we've never performed anything close. So, as far as being in a super low gravity environment for such a long period of time, this would have obvious brutal effects on the body. Point is, we don't know how to travel that far safely quite yet, so even making it there could pose a ton of significant problems. So, as far as the immediate future, we've got to rely on the Europa Clipper to bring us back some good news. Now, that being said, I'm very excited about the possibilities with the Europa Clipper as it's a very advanced, cutting edge piece of technology. According to NASA, it'll be, quote, the size of a passenger van with 100-foot solar arrays spanning out on each side and has an ultraviolet spectrograph that can trace organic compounds. It also comes equipped with a sharp instrument to penetrate Europa's ice and an infrared imaging system. Pretty awesome. And all in all, it will weigh about 13,000 pounds, about one third the weight of a semi truck with an empty trailer. I think it's funny that such a small piece of equipment is set to make such an incredibly huge mission that can change the way we look at life in the universe. NASA claims that the spacecraft will fly by the moon around 50 times, monitoring different regions of the moon. It's great that all of the years we've been talking about the possibility of life on Europa, we're finally close to sending a spacecraft to study this very topic. Hopefully, we find something interesting, and I'm sure we will. Either way, this is a huge step forward for science. And the fact that we're taking our hunt for alien life seriously enough to base an entire mission on finding habitable conditions for ocean life on another planet's moon is incredibly exciting. And the further we study this fascinating celestial body and uncover more of its hidden secrets, the further we will come in our search for extraterrestrial life and the firmer grasp we will gain on our understanding of the cosmos. Thank you all for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe for more awesome science content.